What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Trying something new here tonight. We're going to do a little bit of instant reaction to everything that's happened across college football. You guys know Big 12 is where my heart is, so we will talk plenty about what's going on in the Big 12, but a general reaction to everything in college football today and how it all comes together. And I tell you what, really, the theme of today seems to be, as I put in the thumbnail, like nobody is safe. This felt like nobody is safe Saturday, unless your name is Georgia or Texas. I don't feel like hardly anybody out there really truly is safe. I feel like those are the two teams that I can confirm to you are good. Those are the two teams that I can confirm to you are good football teams. Georgia appears to be very good. Clemson put up 66 points today on Appalachian State and is still that game's still going. So I guess they could add more, maybe threaten to score 70. And Georgia cruised today, no problem. Texas just whooped up on Michigan, which comes as very, very little surprise to me. But we have major upsets like Notre Dame, which, whether you are just a college football fan paying attention to the playoff, as so many do, there are obviously huge implications there. If you are a Big 12 or an ACC fan hoping for an extra playoff spot, a second playoff berth, that was a big result for you, the fact that Notre Dame went down. But you guys know I don't love basing everything on the playoff. I don't like that being our like North Star for everything in the sport. So you have to just say, if you love college football, you'll love everything that happened in the Notre Dame Northern Illinois game too, because it was awesome. You get the underdog upset, you get a big power going down, you get a great emotional interview after the game with the coach. That was phenomenal. You get the kid knocking in the clutch field goal for Northern Illinois, a field goal block, just a cool moment at the end of the game. It was great. It was really, really great. So I love that. The other showdown really that we had today that I think a lot of people were focused in on and paying attention to did not go the Big 12's way. And I try to tell Colorado haters out there in the league, you need to root for the Buffs today because so many people are going to be paying attention to them if things continue to be at least somewhat successful. Not good today. 28-0 at the half. They lose 28-10 to Nebraska, but that game was really not even as close as the final score would indicate there. Colorado was just bullied, pushed around. They still appear to not have much of a defense or an offensive line, and that is going to be a big problem in making them much more than they were last year. Can they be a bowl team? Probably. But the instant reaction there to that game is, yeah, it's not shocking. I mean, Nebraska is a more physical team that now has a quarterback that can actually capitalize, finish drives, and Dylan Raiola looks absolutely, absolutely like the real deal. So it's a little smattering of what you're going to get with this. I want to use the live chat a little bit more tonight since we are just kind of reacting instantly. I haven't had a chance, like a full day like I typically would for a Sunday show to put together coherent thoughts and like really put together takes, but we're going to go off the cuff a little bit more tonight. So I appreciate all of you that are here on YouTube. Really appreciate everybody that's here on Twitter. If you want to be a part of the conversation, fill up the chat. If you want to guarantee that you are going to be a part of the conversation, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the super chat. You can click the $ below the chat box to do that. Create a super chat. It will put it in a separate column for me and guarantee that you make it on tonight. And just support the work that I'm doing to bring you extra content tonight. And the content is always here on the channel. So appreciate all of you guys that are here. As always, good to see so many people. I was wondering what kind of reaction I would actually get, being that it is late. It's 10:25 on a Saturday, and we're all up past our bedtime, right? And I'm giving you kind of the alternate studio angle here too, because we're in the living room where I'm watching games. So I've got Northern Arizona and Arizona up right now, which is 10-6 at half in favor of Northern Arizona, and I've got Wazoo, Texas Tech, which is not looking great for the Big 12 right now either, with Wazoo up 14-3. So let's hope that turns around a little bit. For those of you that are here, another way to support the channel, one is just to like the video, but two if you're a Big 12 fan, even if you're not and you just want some Big 12 news, but if you want Big 12 news without Big 10 or SEC bias and not have to worry about anything filtered through that lens, subscribe to my Big 12 newsletter, Open for Business. You can do so at ofbnews.com. That's ofbnews.com to subscribe to Open for Business, or you can click the link in the description of this video. Easy stuff. And look, I started people were loving the Yormark rating system that I put on the games based on watchability this week. 5 Yormarks to 1 Yormark. We're drawing rave reviews, people. 2,100 plus subscribers already. Big 12 fans who are reading Open for Business. So please do subscribe if you are a Big 12 fan. Okay. Where do we start here? You know what? We'll start here because that's just a lot of numbers. I'll be honest. N60. We're going to call you N64. N64. I would. Can we get a more coherent username here? But try not to ignore the Cyclone victory, John. Look, I was rooting for Iowa State today. I will tell you a couple anecdotes about that. One, first of all, please look at the thumbnail for the video, my friend, N64, because who is front and center in the thumbnail of the video? That would be the Iowa State Cyclones. So there's no ignoring that. That was certainly the biggest result of the day for the Big 12. I suppose you could argue Oklahoma State, Arkansas, but I mean, come on. Winning on the road at a top 20 Big 10 team is going to do you a little bit more than beating an afterthought SEC team that did not make a bowl last year. Gutsy win for Mike Gundy and the Cowboys. Very gutsy, and one that I think was really needed. That would have reflected pretty poorly on the league had they lost. But that was a hell of a win for Iowa State, man. Just ballsy. The final drive was insane. To get that pass play down the sideline, just a perfect ball, just a rope thrown by Rocco Beck there. And then obviously the kid knocking in the 54-yard field goal. It was crazy. And, you know, it just had this feeling. I almost tweeted this, and I was kicking myself for not tweeting afterwards because I was like, I would have looked very smart. But, like, I don't know, midway through the third quarter, it was after Iowa. Maybe this was later than that. Whenever Iowa got to 19, it just had this feeling. I was like, Iowa's not scoring again. Like, this game is there for the taking. It did feel like that because I was like, this is Kirk Ferentz. Like, Ferentz is not going to put his pedal to the floor on any of this. This guy at this point, he's like, look, we got 19 points. It's the Cyhawk game. Why do I need to try to score anymore? Going to get ultra conservative. You're not going to get anything else out of the Iowa offense. And they pulled up too short. You know, it was like Iowa just like they were running a 400 and they ran about 375 meters and then just pulled up and started celebrating or walking at the 25-meter mark, and Matt Campbell and company kept sprinting through. That's really what that felt like. So, no, that's a huge win. It's a really big win for the conference. It is not going to provide you as much juice as West Virginia beating Penn State would have last week, fairly or unfairly. I mean, look, as much as I hate on Penn State, that is a program that I respect and think is higher up in the pecking order than Iowa. So winning at Iowa is going to not do quite as much as beating Penn State. Plus, I will say, West Virginia fans, man, I mean, Penn State damn near got beat at home by Bowling Green today, so it does not reflect really well on last week. Now, I know I've heard some West Virginia spin, and I can buy into some of this, that Penn State was really, really hyped up for last week, and they would tell you, like, oh, you know, it was ho-hum. We don't care about playing a school like West Virginia, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure it meant more to Penn State than a lot of people probably let on, especially because you had the Pat McAfee show there and all the hoopla that was surrounding it the day before, big noon kickoff. And so there probably is somewhat of a letdown effect, but still, man, it's Bowling Green. It's Bowling Green. I would have liked to have thought that more could have come of that. Anyway, great win for the Cyclones. If you're asking the question right now, like, who is the Big 12 favorite, which I think is an interesting tangent that you could go on based on everything that happened today, particularly a Cam Rising injury. I saw somebody asking about the Cam Rising injury status earlier. He has a hand issue that kept him out of the rest of the game after he got kind of shoved on the sideline. I saw Kyle Whittingham said he thought it was late. It looked pretty close to me just seeing, I saw it. It was on screen too for me at that point. Either way, it was like an issue where he came back and he had like his fingers taped together, but X-rays supposedly were negative for Cam Rising. And Kyle Whittingham said it was, I believe the direct quote is, not a serious issue. So I don't know if that means he'll be back next week or not, but it does not sound like it's going to be a long-term thing for Cam Rising. So that, for a moment there when that was really more up in the air, you were like, all right, what's that going to do in terms of throwing a wrench into the Big 12 title race? As long as Cam Rising can get back in 2 weeks when they go to Stillwater, I think they will probably be fine. And I would still tell you that right now, based on what we saw from everybody, I would tell you that Utah is definitely the favorite. And I'm somebody that picked Oklahoma State to win the league, but I think Utah has looked the best to me. They were really dominating that Baylor game before Cam Rising went out. I know part of it was that they got a special teams touchdown, but combine that with how sharp Cam Rising looked in week one, I just feel pretty good about what Utah has put together so far this year. And Oklahoma State, man, I mean, they were getting really pushed around by Arkansas. It was moving up and down the field on them early in that game, for about half the game. It was not looking real good at all for the Pokes. So I have some doubts there. I have some doubts. But they won, and survive in advance is important. And I do think that's one thing I would stress today too. If your team won a close game, didn't look that good, as the solid verbal guys would say, you just need to win your clunkers. And there were a lot of teams that did not today. Kansas did not. Notre Dame did not. Like, there are teams losing to teams that they have no business losing to. So if your team did win, I would not be in too much despair right now. So I don't mean to bury Oklahoma State based on that. And they showed a lot of guts. Again, count Mike Gundy out at your own peril. But it was a little bit dicey there. Enough to the point where I would say Utah is your favorite. All of this a very roundabout way to say N64. Iowa State's win today, you got to pay attention to them. You've got to pay attention to them, especially because let's bring up this schedule for Iowa State. It is backloaded. So they took care of Iowa. They've got Arkansas State at Houston, Baylor, at West Virginia, UCF, Texas Tech. I mean, so Texas Tech's getting blown out right now by Wazoo. It's 21-3. And UCF has looked pretty good through 2 weeks. And going to West Virginia, that will still be tough. Like, you can talk yourself into some of these. Houston gave Oklahoma a hell of a scare tonight, but it's manageable. And then you get to the end of the year, it's at Kansas, Cincinnati, at Utah, K-State. The competition ramps up. Although, I mean, KU and K-State, K-State found a way to pull one out. Kansas did not. We'll see. There's a long way to go. And that schedule by the end of the year will probably wind up looking a lot differently than it actually does right now. But the point is, Iowa State could really start to get on a roll here. So that was an important win for Iowa State for a number of reasons. But one of them absolutely is that they could really start to pick up some steam here, and you're going to have to watch out for them probably in the Big 12 race. So the Clones have earned it, N64. They have earned the airtime, the space, and my respect, and hopefully everybody else's respect as well. So not ignoring it. Thank you, N64. All right. Mark, what's going on, Mark? Appreciate the super chat. If you want to guarantee that your chat makes it on tonight, click the $ below the chat box to do that. Mark says, why did Tulane draw up that play at the end of the game against your Cats? I'm thrilled they did, but it was such an obvious penalty. What was the coach thinking? Mark, I am so glad you asked. Because you make two very good points there. One, yes, it was an obvious offensive pass interference call. I really like Bob Wischusen and Louis Riddick. I think they do a great job, but they had two moments that I thought were pretty poor there at the end of the game. And one of them certainly was just being convinced that that was an awful call. I do not look. I'm trying to pull it up right now because I pulled a screenshot of it so that everybody could see here. So I'm going to try and screen share so that those of you who did not see it can see it, and I will set it up for you. But it looked to me very much like an offensive pass interference call that you would see called, I mean, at least 8 or 9 times out of 10. It was pretty cut and dried. A guy who just does not make enough of an effort to try and run a route. Now, I know the argument is, well, John, he got locked up. Like the defensive back comes in to try and jam him, but then the receiver makes no effort to break away when after the initial, like kind of throwing your hands up, there's no effort to break away. He sticks out his arm and is like shoving back the defensive back who is trying to move over. I mean, it's just a classic pick play. And why am I not able to find this right now? This is quite frustrating because I tweeted it at Stuart Mandel earlier today, and now it is not showing up. Why is my tweet to Stuart Mandel not showing up, everybody? Have I been censored? Has Elon censored me here? No, this is brutal. All right, guys. I may try a little harder to find it in just a moment. But anyway, yeah, it seemed like very basic offensive pass interference. And Mark, you hit on something really important here. The biggest thing nobody is talking about, and John Summerall, the head coach at Tulane, who I think does a great job. He's a great head coach. He had K-State totally on the ropes. And if not for a strip sack, a fumble 6, they're winning that game. But that was a horrendous, now I guess, his OC, it's a horrendous decision on that play call to run the pick play. So the situation is, for those who weren't watching this that closely, Tulane is down by 7. There's 27 seconds left. They have first and goal at the 2 and 2 timeouts. You have 27 seconds and 2 timeouts from the 2-yard line to get that touchdown. You've got literally any play you could possibly want. You could quarterback sneak it twice if you wanted to because you have the timeouts. You can hand the ball off. K-State's defense had been gashed most of the day and definitely on that drive. It was a gift of a play call because you have to think about the risk reward there. And when you run a pick play, there is a high percentage chance, well, at least relative to like your risk for getting a holding call or something on just a handoff, there's a higher chance that you're going to get a 15-yard pass interference penalty for running a pick play. Like those get dicey and it's very easy. A receiver can just stumble and trip into a defensive back and then you've got the penalty. So why are you doing that when you have 2 timeouts from the 2-yard line and it's first and goal? You had everything to work with there. It was a bad decision. That was a really bad decision from John Summerall. And I'm sorry, you got burned because your receiver made it very obvious what was happening there with the pick play. So, yeah, John Summerall did an excellent job. That was not the best moment for his coaching staff today. And, yeah, that is what I would be complaining about if I were a Tulane fan after the game, not what I would say is, wishing for the OPI flag to be picked up, which would be the incorrect interpretation of the rule there. I would also say I don't think he scored. I think he was about a half yard short. Now, again, do I have confidence that the K-State defense was going to stop him? No, I do not. I also did see, I figured Tulane would go for 2. That would have made me more nervous as a K-State fan, but I did see somebody tweet that Summerall had already sent the extra point unit out there. So probably looking at overtime had that not happened. But K-State escaped. There's a lot of talk about Avery Johnson. I think it's fair to say the hype train got too out of control with that. He's definitely had moments where he has struggled so far this year, but he's also had some brilliant moments. He had just a brilliant throw to Will Swanson in the back of the end zone early in the game. He threw a couple of dimes down the field, one to DJ Giddens, another one to Keegan Johnson in the second half, and played much better. Back-to-back weeks now. He's played much better in the second half than he has in the first, but did miss in the first half some pretty wide open stuff down the field. I think it's just clear, like he's a sophomore. It's his third start. He's got the raw talent, but it's raw. Emphasis on raw right now. It's going to take some seasoning, and they're getting used to a new offensive coordinator. They lost, I think, an elite offensive coordinator in Colin Klein. They're getting used to Connor Riley being in his first year calling plays. And I do think, there were some things that were left to be desired there. And I make this point in part because look at what happened to Kansas tonight. I think it's very clear, and I have been steadfast in this to an annoying degree for Kansas fans over the last year. Andy Kotelnicki is a star, and he's now the offensive coordinator at Penn State. That dude is really good, and he schemed people wide open in the Kansas offense the entire time that he was there. Wide open. He's not there anymore. And Jeff Grimes, it depends on who you ask. If you're talking to BYU fans or Baylor fans, like, people in the league will give you some pretty mixed reviews on that. I think that's a pretty clear step down. It could be that K-State is going to deal with the same situation, that's a pretty big step down. We'll see. But the early returns, I think, for both are pretty mixed right now. And I mean, Kansas fans I saw complaining all night about Jeff Grimes. And I understand, like, the screen pass, the end of the first half that turns into a pick six. That was pretty wonky. But also, I mean, like, Jalen Daniels just didn't have it. And the other point that I would make about that is Jason Bean, dude. I mean, Jason Bean had a really nice preseason in the NFL, and that guy, he had some bad moments in clutch situations that I think people really focused on. But for the most part, he was a damn good quarterback. And I think the combination of Kotelnicki and Bean was a lot better than Kansas fans maybe want to give it credit for. And now you're seeing some drop off to that with the Kansas offense. So, and K-State is perhaps dealing with some of the same with the offensive coordinator, at least some growing pains right now. So we shall see. But Mark, I appreciate you with that, because I really wanted to make that point. Like, there's so much focus on the OPI, and I understand why. It's because Louis Riddick went in so hard on it. That's one of those things where, like, the crew that's doing the game will dictate so much how people react to it. And when he goes in so strongly about it, and people are already inclined to want to see the upset, everybody's going to jump on that, just like Stuart Mandel did, where he's just leaping on to the back of Louis Riddick, and he wants to see an upset. And, but remember that Stuart Mandel at one point in time tried to tell everybody that K-State's TV rights would be worth the same amount as Tulane's TV rights when he wrote the AAC story back in July 2021 after Texas and Oklahoma left. So, just a little bit of context there. Anyway, I digress. Mark, thank you for your contribution. Glad K-State could at least give everybody a really entertaining game in the early window, because Michigan and Texas was very much not that. And that was pretty predictable. That is one of those games. Look, I don't really bet on sports hardly at all. It probably happens like once or twice a year. I cashed a future a couple of years ago on K-State to win the Big 12 championship, and or maybe it was even just make the Big 12 championship game. No, it was win the Big 12 championship, and then I took the money afterwards and used that to recoup myself for the money. I basically paid for my ticket to Arlington. But I very rarely bet on games. But I could have told you how that Texas thing was going to go down. That is not the Michigan of last year. Sharon Moore, some growing pains there. And even the Michigan of last year, man, I don't know. I would have liked to have seen them play Texas. I'll put it that way. I understand that Washington beat Texas and then went on to the national championship game and got the life squeezed out of them. But I would have really liked to have seen Texas play them last year. Anyway, Texas is good. Man, that offense, they just have so many weapons, even with the running back injuries that they've had. And they had no trouble moving the ball on Michigan. And you knew Michigan's offense had no chance to keep up with them scoring. Once Texas was really establishing that they were able to move the ball, you knew that was going to be big trouble. So, moving on here. Julius, what's going on, my friend? Appreciate you being here, Julius. Great to see you. Thank you for your generosity and your support of the channel, as always. It is much appreciated. Julius says, howdy, John. BYU got a very ugly and sloppy win yesterday. The Cougs didn't look great, but I bet Notre Dame would have loved a sloppy win. Exactly, Julius. That's exactly what I'm talking about, man. Win your clunkers. And I don't even, is it fair to call that a clunker for BYU? I mean, they were underdogs, at least like a touchdown dog? Did it get up to 10? Was it double-digit underdog on the road? And came out with a win. And I mean, look, that was BYU did some yeoman's work for Big 12 Twitter with that victory. I will tell you that much. SMU fans had talked all this money that we got, and they can't fill their stadium for the game. There's nobody there. My suggestion to them was, next time you have a game that's televised like that in a big window with a lot of people watching, throw some empty money bags on the seats. You got so much money lying around, put some money bags on the seats so it looks like there are actually butts in seats, and there's not just empty seats all over the ESPN cameras. But that was very satisfying for Big 12 Twitter that BYU was able to win that game. So definitely appreciate that. And look, the BYU defense played pretty well against what was billed to be a pretty explosive SMU offense. I'm not sure that in actual practice this year that's going to legitimately be the case. But either way, BYU's defense played very, very well. I just don't know. It's like the quarterback thing, man. Retzloff looked much better certainly last week, but it was Southern Illinois, and you knew it was going to be a different kind of a test when he went up against somebody with more of a pulse. And the early returns on that were not great. So I don't know. Also it's like at this point in his career, is Gary Bohannon really the answer? I don't know. I think BYU can certainly be a bowl team, and that's a really nice start to go get that win. And I mean, the bottom line is, we're talking about all this like Big 12 v ACC superiority type of stuff. I mean, like, I don't know, ACC, another not great day. Tennessee just absolutely abused NC State. Florida State's 0-2. There's not been a lot of good happening, I would say, for the ACC. Clemson, got manhandled by Georgia. But in these types of conversations, it's really nice to see the team that was picked 13th in the Big 12 go on the road to SMU, who some were saying, could be like a dark horse candidate to win the ACC, and then go beat them. And plus, we're sitting here after the game saying, well, BYU didn't even really play that well. It didn't seem like BYU played that well. That was not an A-plus game, certainly, from the Cougars. So I think you have a lot to be happy about there, Julius. You have a lot to be happy about for sure. And on that note, thank you, Julius. Appreciate you being here. On that note, Ryan says, will you be at the BYU K-State game? I will be. I will be in the press box. We'll be credentialed for the game, staying in Salt Lake, and then we'll be making the drive over. So I'm excited. I will be out there. I may be able to. I'm going to see. May be able to sneak in a little bit of extra content while I'm there. It's going to depend. We shall see. But I'm excited to make the trip, and that's going to be a tricky game for K-State. No doubt. It's going to be a tricky game. Appreciate you, Ryan. Houston Cougars, Germany. What's up, Houston Cougars, Germany? How about them Cougs? How about them Cougs indeed, man? Disappointing into the game there with not only, the punt doesn't work out very well. You get pinned deep, and then was it a read option? I mean, if it's a read option, Donovan Smith definitely needs to just keep that ball instead of giving it. It sucks to have it go where you don't even get an attempt at the drive because the safety happens. But, dude, to push Oklahoma like that, yes. Hell yeah. I mean, Willie Fritz is the thing. I know last week didn't look very good, but UNLV is a team with a pulse. Like, that's certainly not a team without a pulse. They won 9 games last year. That's a program right now. It's a program. Barry Odom's a legitimate coach. Having said all of that, Willie Fritz is a very legitimate coach himself. And he was not going to just lay down and die with this team and go be, a 3-9 team just automatically without a fight. Like, you were going to get more of a fight from Willie Fritz. So that was really, really encouraging to see out of them. Put a hell of a scare into Oklahoma. I know Sooner fans don't seem to be too particularly pleased through a couple of weeks either. So for those of you that are sitting here saying, well, early returns on the hey, Oklahoma's going to turn into Nebraska. That's probably a bridge too far. Oklahoma's going to turn into Tennessee in the SEC, something like that. Early returns are looking like, this year might be a little tricky. And the Sooners do have a pretty tough schedule. It's not like Florida's schedule, but they do have a pretty tough schedule. So Not sure that today did much to assuage those fears of any Sooner fans that have that as a fear, or calm down any of the haters who are predicting all of that for Oklahoma. So yeah, I give a ton of credit to Houston for that effort today. Rise and Shout, what's up, Rise and Shout? Rumor you're on BYU TV's pregame show versus K-State. Wow. Well, I mean, it's news to me. That's news to me. I would love to make an appearance there. So pass the word on to them. I would love to do it. I'm flying in Friday afternoon. I get to Salt Lake, like early afternoon. So yeah, hit me up. Tell them to hit me up. My Rhino. What's up, my Rhino? Dude, that's an awesome picture there. Treated like crap by all today. Cal made a statement. Hey, my Rhino, I will give Cal lots of credit. I don't remember what day that was. When was that, guys? That was maybe sometime within the last month and a half. There was a Cal fan that got a little crosswise with everybody in the chat, and I did pop off on Cal a little bit. That was the day where we were talking about, Marshawn Lynch isn't walking through that door. Aaron Rodgers isn't walking through that door. Who else has played for Cal? No, Cal not only won and should get respect for that, but they put together probably the funniest possible outcome by winning at Auburn. I think that's the funniest result of the day. And here I start scrolling through top 25 scores to find it. My apologies. Why would I scroll through the top 25 to try and find something about Auburn? But 21-14, they win at Jordan-Hare. Hilarious. Like, just the SEC thing, right? You're knocking off an SEC team in their house. Auburn, just a crazy lunatic fan base that runs Gus Malzahn off, and now is sitting here with Hugh Freeze, especially after some of the stuff in his past. And then, look, you got to laugh a little bit at, like, the guys from Berkeley roll in here, who can't draw 10,000 at their home games. They roll in there and beat you in this, like, coveted SEC stadium that I hear Josh Pate talk about how difficult it is to play there. And I'm sure it's really difficult to play in when it's really full throat and going. But all that stuff, SEC and Auburn hubris, and Cal walks in there and beats them. You have my respect today, Cal. Justin Wilcox, you've earned it. Congratulations. My Rhino, you've earned it. That was definitely a statement. I love that. Look, the undertones of what it means for people from Berkeley to walk into the deep South in Auburn and then take out their beloved Auburn Tigers and everything that is held sacred to everybody there in Auburn, Alabama. It is funny. That is funny. Jason, which Big 12 team looked the best today? Iowa State. Well, so here's the thing. I mean, I'm gonna have to go through and look at all this, because, like, I feel like it's like bits and pieces. First of all, I'm looking at Arizona State right now, up 20-3 on Mississippi State. That seems awfully good. And I kind of thought Mississippi State would be a good bet this week at like plus 6.5, because I thought there might be an overreaction to Arizona State, but man, apparently not. It looks like Kenny Dillingham's making some progress, folks, in year 2. Now, there's a long way to go in that game. And just ask our poor friends at Cincinnati about the long way to go thing, because while I was sweating out K-State Tulane and looking at K-State and Oklahoma State really struggling, I thought, all right, well, great. Cincinnati has this thing in hand over Pitt, and somehow they found a way to lose that game. But, like, Oklahoma State, I mean, that was definitely not complete enough of a game from them. They got outgained. Like, Arkansas was over 600 yards and Oklahoma State was under 400, I believe, in terms of the total yardage there. So you definitely can't do them. You're not going to do Kansas. Iowa State, I mean, it's a great win. It's a really tough, gritty win. They looked pretty bad for a half. I mean, they did not look good. So for a half, Iowa State would definitely be in contention for that answer. UCF won 45-14, and I know that a couple of UCF fans came at me and were like, hey, UCF quietly dark horse contender in the Big. Well, I've always had them as a dark horse contender in the Big 12. I don't know that UCF and it was New Hampshire, right? Last week, rather Sam Houston in New Hampshire. Sam Houston in New Hampshire, it's not moving the needle for me much. I need to see them play something of more substance to really make a determination, but they've got an insane backfield. KJ Jefferson, I saw a bunch of questions about him in week 1. It sounds like he was a little bit better this week. But yeah, when you play Sam Houston, I don't know if I can make you look the best. BYU picked up a big win, but again, that was pretty ugly. TCU played Long Island. Anybody raising their hand for Colorado being the best? So I guess Iowa State, certainly by default, I would say gets the award this week for the team that looked best in the Big 12. By default, I would give that to Iowa State because of just how damn tough that win was, how gritty that win was, and they made huge plays when they absolutely had to have them down the stretch. So that will make up a bit for the first half. The other team I didn't talk about, I glossed over this one. I mean, until Cam Rising got hurt, Utah was certainly in contention for that. Utah was really thumping Baylor and looking very good. And then, they have to go to a really young quarterback, and it felt like it came off the rails a little bit. Isaac Wilson was 4 of 9 for 30 yards. He rushed twice for -10. Those are probably just sacks, I suppose. So, yeah, I mean, they're just a much different team without Cam Rising, and Baylor was able to kind of hang around and, keep it fairly respectable. Not a good day for Daquan Finn, 9 of 12, $115, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions. But yeah, I think I would give it to Iowa State. Pending Arizona State. I guess if Arizona State goes on to put a final score on Mississippi State like they did Wyoming, you probably have an argument there. And shout out to I'm forgetting his name, but the Arizona State fan who was in the chat and then found me on Twitter, who said he was going to keep bringing the noise on ASU. We need some ASU fans in here. We need some ASU blood in here. So I'm all for it. You guys deserve respect based on the way things are going right now. Let me throw out a reminder. We got a ton of people in here, a lot of people, especially from Twitter. And those of you on Twitter, if you're a Big 12 fan, if you're a college football fan and you want Big 12 news straight to your inbox multiple times a week, no Big 10 or SEC bias, you want to be the smartest Big 12 fan in your group chat, sign up for the Open for Business newsletter, ofbnews.com to get it. ofbnews.com again to get it. Or if you are in the YouTube video, you can find it in the description of the video to subscribe and sign up for free, totally free, to get the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. Would appreciate it if you guys did that. Would appreciate it if you liked the video. That always helps as well. If you want to make sure that your question or comment makes it on tonight, you can click the $sign below the chat box to do that and create a super chat. Appreciate all the guys who support me there. I should say, probably will be a lot of people that wake up on Sunday and watch this after the fact. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you want to contribute there. And then you can make the live show tomorrow. I still do plan to do a live show tomorrow where I will put together a little more, I said coherent earlier. That was probably not fair. But just a more put together takes after I've had time to digest everything, where we're just reacting here. We're reacting on the fly tonight as we watch Big 12 After Dark as well. Nate, what's going on, Nate? Appreciate you. Congratulations to your Cyclones, Nate. Hell of a day for you guys. Hell of a day for Cyclone Larry, who is probably, I don't think there's a person in the Big 12 who is better at Twitter than Cyclone Larry. So got to give him his flowers. It was excellent. And he was making me laugh today. Nate says the Cyhawk game is more about in-state bragging rights than national exposure. Go Cyclones. The trophy is coming home. I'm glad the Cyclones will get a week off. We need to get the linebackers healthy. Yeah. When is Bacon? I guess I'm trying to remember what did Matt Campbell say? It was going to be a while, but not out for the year. That was a tough blow to lose him. Former walk-on. He's a stud. I mean, he's definitely like a John Heacock, Iowa State defensive kind of guy. But you are correct, Nate, and that's kind of the point where more impactful games nationally for the Big 12 have gone against them. in Colorado is looking like crap today, and West Virginia kind of looking like crap last week, then Iowa State beating Iowa, because Iowa is like a punchline nationally. I mean, they're a top 20 team. It's like this oxymoron of Iowa is a top 20 team, so you'd think that's going to generate you a decent amount of respect. But at the same time, they're a joke because of the offense, and nobody really respects them. So, and they've feasted on the Big Ten West for so many years. You don't really gain a whole hell of a lot by beating them. So, and like the Cyhawk game, it's just always this game that like nobody's scoring more than 20 points, and it's a total rock fight. And I think you're right. A lot of that stuff drags down some of the national appeal of the game. But it was a really entertaining game, and it's at least something. And yeah, for Cyclone fans, yeah, hell yeah, man, it's huge. It's huge. I'm legitimately happy for you guys. Legitimately happy for Iowa State fans on that front. That had to be incredible, the way that game went down, and the way you won that, particularly at the end. So, yes, congratulations, Nate. Get rested up, get healthy. We'll see how Iowa State mixes it up in the Big 12. Rich, what's up, Rich D? Appreciate you, Rich D. Oh boy, Arizona almost just was up. Arizona's receivers bobbling all over the place. Arizona up 13-10 now in Northern Arizona, by the way. Rich says, thanks for 2 shows today. Well, of course. Yes, we did a live edition of 3 Maw, a K-State podcast that you can check out. Who makes the playoff of Tulane, K-State, or Utah? Ooh. I mean, I would put Utah as the leader in the clubhouse there for sure, assuming that Kyle Whittingham is right and Cam Rising's injury is not anything serious. Second out of that, I mean, I think Tulane has a chance. It's really pretty even. It's hard for me to give one or the other on K-State or Tulane there, because I think Tulane has a chance. I do like Mensa is a very talented quarterback. I mean, he played a really good game. He had a lot of guys just schemed wide open too. But I think he's a really good quarterback, and I think they have some great athletes. I mean, Mario Williams, that's a former 5-star receiver. He was running around there making plays. They've used the portal pretty well. Like, that's a team that has pieces. Mensa is young, and going through the course of a season, you're going to have some ups and downs. And, he did make a couple of mistakes, obviously, like the interception at the end of the game there. So I don't know if I trust them with like that young of a quarterback to win their league, go undefeated, be the highest ranked Group of 5 champion that's going to be out there for the playoff. So that's why I have a little bit of hesitation on that. I would just say I think Utah, if you're power ranking it, it's Utah 1, K-State, Tulane, 2A, 2B. Goodness, Oregon's losing to Boise State. We may have a wild night window here, people. It's just been a wild day in college football already. So yeah, I would take Utah. Like if you put a gun to my head, I'd take Utah for being the one team out of that group to make the playoff if somebody is. Love the Cats. Huge to pick up a win. Win your clunkers. I don't think that's I truly don't think that's like a bad day. I think there are definitely some question marks with the team. I don't think that's like a bad result, like to win by 7 in that spot. I don't think is a bad result. There are questions about the team though. Cowpoke Ranch. What's up, Cowpoke Ranch? It's Oklahoma State than everybody else. I assume that's in response to the question of who looked best in the Big 12 today. Well, Cowpoke Ranch, I mean, again, great in the second half. I'll just kind of reiterate what I said earlier, but I mean, it was not going well. I had that on the second screen. I was paying pretty close attention to that while watching K-State Tulane. That was not going well for a while, man. Arkansas 21-7 at half. They were really controlling it. Like I said, let's go look at that total yardage. You got outgained. Oh boy. Arkansas outgained Oklahoma State 648 to 385. I can't really give you the title when you're beating a team that won 4 games last year in overtime and they outgained you 648 to 385. And I say this, Cowpoke Ranch is somebody who picked Oklahoma State to win the league this year. I picked Oklahoma State to win the league this year. So I feel like I can be pretty like I'm not doing this to just hate on the Pokes. I guess would be the point there. I do want to make one point though here on the game, Cowpoke Ranch. I would say this: the Alan Bowman. Now I had the sound off on this, and I'm pretty sure this happened. Right, Alan Bowman got a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty in a crucial moment in the game for giving like the little finger guns after celebrating a play. That really happened, because that was like the funniest moment of the day for me, where I was just like, oh wow, like what Alan Bowman of all people, the guy that's played college football for like 18 years, is going to be the one to get a penalty for shooting off the finger guns there. So I mean, look, great win. I'm not trying to take anything away, Cowpoke Ranch, from the win for Oklahoma State. Great win. Should not apologize for that at all. Important one for the league. Much like Iowa State, very gritty, very tough, especially, after your kicker misses the game-winning field goal and you got to go back into a second overtime and try and do it again. All the credit in the world to Oklahoma State. I will give a little bit more credit there to Iowa State. They did it on the road, and they did it against the top 20 team. Same thing, tale of two halves. They were much better for one half. They did it on the road, and they did it against the top 20 teams. So that's the reasoning there. That is the reasoning there. What else have we not covered today? Definitely let me know in the chat, guys, what you have. And if you want to guarantee that your chat makes it on, you can click the $sign below the chat box to do that. Bard Music, Freeman better be updating his resume. Yeah, I mean, Marcus Freeman, he's had a couple of these bad. He lost to Marshall already, right? That's happened once in his career. All that goodwill that he just built up in College Station last week completely evaporates by losing to Notre Dame. I will probably talk a little bit more about this tomorrow on tomorrow night's live show, but Notre Dame losing was pretty big today for everybody else, because it probably, well, it goes a long way toward keeping Notre Dame out of the playoff, which ergo frees up a spot for somebody else. When it was looking like the conversation, and rightfully so, last week was like, I mean, Notre Dame might run the table. Like that schedule is not particularly difficult, and they're going to be in a great position to make the playoff. But you have that bad of a loss on your resume, that really drags you down. That almost feels like it might be 2 losses for Notre Dame, and they can only afford maybe one more the rest of the way, maybe. So it's a nice thing for the hope for the Big 12 of the ACC to try and get a second team in. But most people would probably say, well, it's just going to mean one more Big 10 or SEC team, and so maybe so. But it really truly does. I mean, if we're talking about the playoff picture, that affects most of the rest of college football. And Marcus Freeman updating his resume. Sean, I think it was my guy Sean, who tweeted at me earlier. He was like, Notre Dame head coach Matt Campbell. Am I doing that right? And I was like, hey, that's pretty good. Probably a little too soon for my blood on the Notre Dame thing, but definitely have the right idea. And, keeps going like things did today. If you keep going like things did today, that may well be the case. Matt Campbell keeps winning games and Marcus Freeman keeps losing games. Maybe that one will make a lot more sense here pretty soon. Rise and Shout, can you give us a week 2 power ratings? Boy, I want to start doing this. I will give you some power rankings this week in the newsletter. I promise you. It's hard. It's really, there's so many teams. It is hard to do on the fly without writing it out. Let me see what I can do for you. Okay, so I would go Utah 1. I'll go Utah 1, Oklahoma State 2, Iowa State 3. K-State 4. Then after that, it's getting dicey because Kansas drops big time today. Arizona's in a dogfight right now and late in the third quarter against Northern Arizona. So, I mean, who's next up? 6. I guess I'm probably still leaning Arizona. Maybe UCF. UCF, Arizona, 6-7. Maybe you give BYU a bump for that win up to 8. and then you stick in like Kansas. And it's like then we're like West Virginia, Colorado, that tier, Texas Tech. I mean, they weren't looking very good. I'll give you that for like a preview of it. And Rise and Shout, I know you're a BYU fan, so I made sure to get BYU. I took it down to BYU for you. That's kind of my thought and feeling on it there. I do want to. Rise and Shout. Rise and Shout. Well, this is a man after my own heart. Man or woman. Don't mean to assume there. This shirt, this is a Blink-182 concert shirt from what is it? Where we got? Omaha, Nebraska. 2009. It would be 9 or 10. It was the Blink-182 reunion tour, the first time that they came back after breaking up. And a show when I saw them with Panic at the Disco and Fall Out Boy in Omaha in 2009, and that was a really, really fun show. It was a crazy show. There were a ton of people there. That was a massive one. So yeah, that's I've seen Blink probably like 10 times in my life. So thank you for asking. Thank you for asking about the shirt. We need to talk about Kansas. I'm going to get to Eddie here real quick, and then I definitely want to talk about Kansas before we leave. And if anybody has anything else, again, that's burning game that you want to talk about, because we really haven't talked too much about Colorado, Nebraska. I may save some of that for tomorrow. I mean, really, the long and short of Colorado, Nebraska is I'm not even a Colorado hater, but we tried to tell you, anybody who's not a Colorado fanboy, we tried to tell you, it doesn't really look like this offense. Like, you can't just snap your fingers and rebuild an offensive line and a defense just because you got some splashy names in the portal. It takes a little bit more than that. And that still appears to really be Colorado's problem. Eddie. What's up, Eddie? Eddie says, hi, buddy. Some good wins over good teams, but some very sloppy play and bad coaching in the K-State KU game and Texas Tech game. Some good improvement from Baylor and Houston. Even the loss, Arizona State looks good. Yeah, Eddie, I would agree with your assessment in general of the league there, and I appreciate your support as always. You guys, if you need a real estate agent in San Antonio, you know who to hit up. Eddie Lozano, San Antonio Real Estate. Good wins. It was a mixed bag, I guess, is really the thing. You have some good wins and some good moments for the league, but there was also definitely some bad. The Kansas loss, and maybe that's the jumping off point here. The Kansas loss was pretty bad. Like, that's a team that everybody thought would be in the Big 12 title mix. They still might be, but it's going to hurt even if they are, because everybody will bring it back to, well, okay, so a team that might win the Big 12 title is a team that lost on the road at Illinois. Like, come on. Because I got to be honest, Kansas fans, I didn't see much out of Illinois that makes me think they're going to be a whole hell of a lot better than the 5-7 team that they were last year. But, more on that in a moment. Baylor hung tough. It helped again that Cam Rising got hurt. But Houston, that's a massively encouraging result for Houston to hang in with Oklahoma the way that they did in Norman. That's an incredibly encouraging result, not just for the mere fact that they were able to do it, but for what happened to them last week and being really embarrassed at home by UNLV. That shows, to me, a pretty good coach. Goodness, did Arizona just miss a chip shot field goal? They sure did. But it just shows a lot of poise from the team and tells me that that's a pretty well-coached team to be able to do that. And that's what I would expect out of Willie Fritz. So I think it's a really positive sign early on about just the program builder that Willie Fritz is and what the potential there is at Houston, even if it is likely going to take a while. Or a while. I don't mean to say it's going to be years and years, Houston fans, but you're probably not going to be an 8-win team this year. But there's still some real signs of progress being shown. So I agree with you, Eddie. I agree with you there. Appreciate you being here. Thank you, my friend. All right. So yeah, the Kansas game in general, like Illinois, I just don't know exactly how that happened. I don't, we do a pick on the 3 Mile podcast every week, the pick against the spread of the week, for our contest. I won it last year, and I won it betting on Kansas a lot, or, placing my choice every week on Kansas a lot. And I did it again this week. I was like, dude, Kansas -5 at Illinois. Illinois is slow, plodding, gross offense, pretty good defense, but I didn't see how they would be able to hang it all. And the Kansas offense, I mean, woof, woof. Jalen Daniels threw 3 picks. They continue to, I felt like this was always a thing with Andy Kotelnicki, one of the few bones that I would have to pick with him. It felt like they didn't give Devin Neal the ball enough sometimes. It's absolutely the case again tonight. He had 14 carries and averaged 7 yards a carry, but they only gave it to him 14 times. They're giving the ball 7 times to Daniel Highshaw, who, it's not like he was bad, but I don't know. I saw Savion Morrison getting in there with a carry. I would give the ball a lot more to Devin Neal, especially on a night when Jalen Daniels definitely didn't have it. Threw a pick 6, threw 3 interceptions. I really think so much of this is about the drop off from Kotelnicki and Bean to Jalen Daniels and Jeff Grimes, but we'll see. I mean, I know Lance Leipold had a really nice, I was literally just listening to this right before I popped on for the live. I heard his clip where he was like, look, I mean, our goals are still very much out in front of us. And anybody who thinks this team's season is over is just sorely mistaken. And I mean, it's very true. I mean, Kansas can absolutely still go win the league and make the playoff. I think this torpedoes their at-large hopes. And the other thing it does is if they are going to be a legitimate competitor for the league title, this loss will drag down some of the reputation of the league. If it's like, oh, well, I'm not saying that's fair. I'm not saying that's fair, but it will drag down the reputation of the league because they're going to be like, well, this team that lost at Illinois is now competing for the Big 12 title. So clearly that league can't be good. You will get a lot of that shoved down your throat. So that's very disappointing. I mean, it seems like Kansas fans really feel like they definitely beat up Illinois in the trenches and still lost the game. And I mean, watching the game and then now looking at the stat sheet, it's hard to argue too much with that. Illinois rushed for 79 yards. If you would have told me Illinois is going to rush for 79 yards in this game, I'm thinking there's no way they're winning because they're going to have to just be slow, methodical, plodding drives, which they were, but they did more through the air than I thought that they actually would. And then Kansas would have to help them out, and they did by giving them a free 7 with the pick 6 on the screen at the end of the half. So that was just, you never really saw that out of Kansas before. Maybe you could argue, I guess, like the Texas Tech game last year would be an instance where it felt like some sloppy play kind of beat themselves. You don't see it often, certainly under Lance Leipold. And to do that to this Illinois team, I don't care whether they had a sellout crowd or not. It's not good. It's not good. So I wouldn't pull the plug on the Kansas season at all. They still have enough talented players there, particularly on offense, that I don't think you can do that. I definitely don't think you can do that. But they're going to have to get a lot better in a hurry. They better do it before next Friday. I mean, hell, they've got UNLV. We were just talking about Houston UNLV. Kansas has UNLV coming to a soccer stadium that's not going to be your typical home field advantage because there aren't as many people there. They've got UNLV in a soccer stadium in 6 days. You better get some stuff figured out. You better get some stuff figured out if you are Kansas and you want to win that game, let alone talking about winning the league. So, and there will be tight turnarounds K-State had plenty of issues today at Tulane. They got to play on Friday against Arizona. Arizona's literally playing right now as we speak, a late night game where they're up 13-10 with 2 minutes left in the third quarter at home on Northern Arizona. And Northern Arizona has the ball and is driving. And they're going to have to turn around and go to Manhattan, Kansas in 6 days on Friday. So, a lot of teams here that have put up some disappointing efforts that are going to have to turn it around pretty quick. I mean, I will say as a K-State fan, this is definitely encouraging to see that Noah Fafita and Tataroa McMillan are not just completely terrorizing somebody else again, because it felt like in the first half of the K-State game today that McMillan was going to go for about 400 next week, the way K-State was just leaving dudes wide open. I was going to go check the box score of that one real quick. Tataroa McMillan's got 2 catches for 11 yards. That's crazy. All right, maybe Northern Arizona has found something there in terms of how they are defending that. Texas, boy, Jeff, tell Joey McGuire that the brand sucks. What is the tech score? What is the tech score? How do I keep exiting out of my Big 12 scoreboard here? And now I'm a week ahead. Why? Why is this happening? Why? 27-10. Oh, boy. Boy. It appears that our fears about the Texas Tech defense have been confirmed, right? Last week, giving up 51 to Abilene Christian, then having a bevy of injuries. Is Taj Brooks playing? Is Taj Brooks playing tonight, Tech fans? And go look at that box score. Oh, boy, no, it does not look like Taj Brooks is playing. So that definitely hurts. That definitely hurts. But the real problem appears to be the defense. It appears to be the defense. Oh, well, sorry, Jeff. Still time to get it turned around. Jalen Daniels is overrated. We'll see. I mean, we'll see. Is this a blip on the radar? I will just say I thought in week 1, the Kansas offense and Jalen Daniels didn't look particularly impressive to me. Lindenwood was just that's a team that had just moved up to FCS. They were so overmatched. It was really hard to tell much of anything. And I'm thinking, all right, well, it's his first game back. There's probably going to be some rust to knock off. I can understand that and grant him. But I had a little, hint where I was like, man, I don't know. That didn't look like the guy from September of 2022 that Kansas fans, I think, still imagine him to be. So it's been a while. It's been a while since we've seen him be the quintessential Jalen Daniels. Again, I think he's got enough talent and enough of a track record that I wouldn't totally write that off. But I do wonder how much Andy Kotelnicki had to do with how dazzling he looked there for a while. ASU looking impressive. What do we got for Arizona State now? What do we got? I may have to switch that game over from Tech here. Woo! 27-3. Kenny Dillingham's coming. Arizona State going to be a bowl team. They got to go to Texas State. Now, Texas State's a pretty good G5 team. So that is tricky, and it'll be their first time on the road next week. Then they're going to Texas Tech. Then they got Kansas at home. I don't know. Maybe could we see 4-1 Arizona State? Could we see 4-1 Arizona State by the time that they then would host Utah? Then they would still have Cincinnati. It's a fairly tough schedule that Arizona State has, but I think they've got a shot. They've got a shot to go bowling if they're going to play like this and just kick everybody's ass. I mean, that's certainly going to give them an opportunity. All right, I will take this from Rise and Shout real quick and then probably pop off here now that we're over an hour. Next week, I mean, Friday will be fun. It's a bummer that the Kansas UNLV game is at the same time as K-State Arizona, because I think both of those games will be really fun to watch. But you've got both of those on Friday, so you're going to have a hell of a Friday in the Big 12. Then, Oklahoma State at Tulsa. They probably should handle that. Westview, we got backyard brawl. Next week. If Utah has to go to Utah State without Cam Rising, I guess keep your eye on that. Colorado State. My question will be, does anybody in Big 12 country at least really care about Colorado that much at that point in that game? I don't know. And UCF TCU, we got a conference game. UCF TCU 6:30 on Fox. That's an interesting one. Which one of those? TCU's been a little bit more tested by having to go win that Stanford game, but UCF will get a chance to show that they are for real if they really are for real. So that's what I'd say your highlights are: K-State Arizona, UNLV Kansas, backyard brawl, West Virginia Pitt, and UCF TCU. I think those are your best games to look forward to next week. Guys, if you are a Big 12 fan, make sure you are signed up for the Big 12 newsletter, Open for Business, ofbnews.com. I'm giving you all the Big 12 news that you need without any Big 10 or SEC bias or clutter. You're not going to read about things through a Big 10 or SEC lens like you would at most places you're getting your college football news. So sign up at ofbnews.com to get the Open for Business newsletter. If you're a supporter of what I do, I would much appreciate that. You can also find a link to that in the description of the video if you are on YouTube. But definitely tell your friends. If you are an Open for Business subscriber, tell people about it, spread the word, like the video on your way out the door, and tell everybody about the channel. Let's keep building this thing bigger and bigger. This was fun. I'm glad that I got this much of a response and this many people in here. Thank you so much, everybody, for hopping in. Try to do these more often. It'll be a little bit tougher when I'm covering K-State games, but we'll try to make it happen as much as we can. So thank you, guys. Have a tremendous rest of your weekend, and I will talk to you very soon, as in tomorrow night.